Hello. I'm still stuck here. Still stuck in bed with endometriosis. So I thought, why not read chapter 2 of Cunk on Fangs by B Movie Erotica. You can find the oh hello. You can find it. I'll put the link somewhere on whether it's Blue Sky or somewhere because I don't think you can really link stuff here. But anyway, it's chapter 2 of Cunk on Fangs, which is Philomena Cunk doing interview with a vampire. So there might be the odd rude word. So please be aware if you're, young, don't watch. Chapter 2, Welcome to Dubai. I'm led into Louis Dupont Dulac's penthouse by a tall gentleman named Rashid. As both an ally of the LGBTQ community and a member ever since that one time at St. Bridget's, I'm alerted by my innate gay radar or graydar that Rashid is on our side. I attempt to highlight this commonality to bridge our cultural divide. Do you like cock? I ask. I did warn you. It's going to have some rude. Rashid stops and looks at me like I'm a large leathery meatball that's just fallen out of the sky. I beg your pardon. Not your own. I mean other men's, I clarify. There's a long silence in which the careful professionalism that Rashid has cultivated thus far begins to slip. Perhaps he needs another push. I've kissed girls, I say, with tongue. It's different from a man, unless they're clean shaven. Is that why you keep your face so smooth? To make room for other men's lips? I think I'm getting somewhere. Rashid looks down and opens his mouth with a tight jaw. No. Oh, well, you look nice. We continue on through the concrete hallways of Louis' sprawling penthouse. The walls are covered in art, which looks expensive, which means it's quite boring. Rashid directs me to a giant living room where one wall is all tinted windows with a spectacular view of Dubai. In the middle is a glass coffee table and white leather couches, just waiting to be torn to shreds by an untrained errant poodle. Please sit. Thanks, I say. My legs are killing me. I was sandwiched between two toddlers for 8 hours on the flight over, and they kept punching my legs. Laughing at me too, not a parent in sight. Makes you wonder what's going on in this world, doesn't it? Rashid does not answer my call for rationality. Instead, he fucks off to the kitchen. This is Philomena Cunk. This is Philomena Cunk Interview with the Vampire by B Movie Erotica. Eventually, he comes back with a pot of tea while I'm looking at the giant wall-sized art. It's a big, boring piece that's just 3 colours of paint spread lengthwise on the canvas. There's a picture of it there. Piece of shit, isn't it? I say, pointing. Rashid blinks and looks at me the way I looked at those toddlers on the plane. He speaks very seriously. It's a Rothko. Oh, is he famous? Yes, Rashid says. He turns to the painting and his eyes glow a little. This is his only landscape piece in which the colours are all displayed horizontally. You'll notice that his other works are in portrait or composed of squares on a wide canvas. He never made another painting of this kind. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Oh, I say again. Well, it's good he switched to something else because I can't stand looking at it. Rashid sets down the tea on the table very slowly, and then he walks silently to a corner and picks up an iPad. Hello. Before I have time to ask him what games he has on it, Louis Dupont Dulac enters the room. Louis is shorter than Rashid, but taller than me, and he is about the size of a person who could fit comfortably through an average doorway. He has a warm expression despite his unusual, piercing green eyes, which remind me of a border collie I knew as a child, who once herded me into a lake. He's wearing a black sweater over white slacks and loafers, and you wouldn't be able to tell that he was a billionaire, except for his terrible taste in art. He speaks with an American accent, which also catches me off guard. Miss Philomena Cunk, welcome to Dubai. Hi everyone, this is the Philomena Cunk comedic interview with a vampire thing by B-Movie Erotica. His smile is nice, and I take my time to drink a little bit of my tea before replying. It helps to establish journalistic and sexual dominance. Oh. Hello, well, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. I don't know what anything means. I'm sorry. Thanks. Is Daniel here? Is he not joining us? Louis seems prepared for that question, and he gives another light-hearted smile. Your mentor will be along shortly. His nails are long, pointy-like, and he holds his hands folded close to his stomach as he sits. He doesn't reach for the other cup of tea, so I decide to start moving along. Your name? Louis Dupoint du Lac is French for Louis points at a lake. Why were you pointing at a lake? Was someone drowning in it? Louis looks at me with a lot more sympathy than Rashid ever did. Rashid is still in the corner, playing on his iPad. Louis of Lake Point. I'm Creole, born and raised in Louisiana. He leans back casually but crosses one leg over the other. Cockshame. I write that down in my notebook. You ever been over to New Orleans, Miss Cunk? Yeah, I did a piece there on exotic snakes, I say. They were all gathered down in someone's basement, and we had to lure them out with mice on strings. It was actually a story that Daniel tipped me off to. Louis gives an inscrutable smile. You and Daniel are quite close, it seems. He turns and nods to Rashid in the corner, and Rashid slinks in his usual way down a side hall. Maybe he's going to the kitchen to fetch us snacks. Hello. I was surprised when Daniel requested your presence here, Louis goes on. I looked you up. Very niche work, surprisingly little formal training. But you come with the highest accolades from all the great names in reporting. There were even some classified files I had to nose my way into. Nothing I'm sure you're able to disclose here anyway. Anderson Cooper said to me, Philomena doesn't have a way with words. She has a way through words. You do something to people, make them unravel in a way that's a rare skill in this field. He looks at me like he's expecting something grand to happen. Yeah, that's true, I say. One time my mate Paul was in lockup for nicking his cousin's Xbox, but I convinced everyone it was a part of a performance piece on crime. Louis nods slowly, the corner of his lip curling up. I realise that it's strangely dark in this room. Did Daniel tell you what this story was about, he says. I'm starting to get bored again, and my eyes wander over to that shit painting on the wall. No. Louis stares down his nose at me, his green eyes glowing like the headlamps of a strangely attractive bus about to run me over. I'll remember his next words for as long as I live. I'm a vampire, Miss Cunk. I take a moment to think about what he said. A few possible explanations hurtle through my mind. The first scenario, my long-time mentor, Daniel Malloy, has done me a solid and set me up on a blind date with a reclusive billionaire who's into the kink scene. That would be the jackpot, wouldn't it? But what part was Daniel going to play? Would he and Rashid share the coveted cuck chair? Second, maybe I've misheard. He might have said, I'm a campfire, or I'm a damp crier. Either one is entirely possible. Third, he really is a vampire. Then I'd be properly fucked. I drink some more of my tea and make sure to smack my lips loudly to show that I'm not afraid and that my lips are moist. What's in this, I ask. Louis tilts his head with a slight frown. He'd expected me to take the bait. It's Salaimani tea, one of the region's specialities, he says. Sorry, I really butchered that. I thought you might need a pick-me-up after your long flight. You're here to hear my story, Miss Cunk, the centuries of recollection, as long as it takes to tell. I'm looking around the room now, and I'm starting to feel sweaty. The walls feel like they're pressing in, as if that stupid painting is going to squash me sideways like a waffle, cooked and ready to be eaten. I suddenly notice that Rashid is back in the corner and he hasn't brought any snacks. Oh, hello, there's people. What if I get hungry, I ask. Louis blinks. I believe I said over the phone that we feed you any and all meals that you desire. Oh, right, I just meant that if your story is centuries long, it'd be hard to go that long without eating. Will we get toilet breaks? I have to wee, so am I supposed to... I gesture down at the sofa. Let us them out little by little? There is a washroom down the hall, Rashid cuts in, and he points a black-gloved hand down another concrete passage. Miss Cunk, the story will not take centuries to tell, just that it covers centuries. Louis says, his face growing very concerned. I ponder this as I get up and walk down the hall to take care of my business. When I return, after I've had time to think things through, Louis and Rashid are standing close by each other and whispering secretly. I immediately cross out possible scenario number 1 from my mind because my graydar is going berserk. Louis is entangled with his manservant in a deeply erotic psychosexual drama that would tickle the interest of any novelist. So, if you're a vampire, I cut in, can you float? Could you go up there and unscrew that light bulb and then melt it in your hand with your mind and then reform the melted glass into a dagger that I could keep? I point to a light embedded in the ceiling, but Louis smiles and shakes his head. I'm afraid that's not within my abilities. Different vampires have different powers, all which will be explained soon enough. Can you turn into a bat? I ask. No. A bird? No. A parakeet? No. A pelican? No, those are both birds. Anything that flies? No. A fish? I can't turn into anything but the man you see in front of you now. Can you multiply fish? No. Loaves of bread? No. Could you turn a non-alcoholic beverage into an alcoholic beverage? Miss Cunk, my abilities are not Christ-like in nature. What about reading minds? At this, Louis pauses. He tilts his head back, eyeing me like that border collie that ran me into the lake. Yes. What am I thinking then? Louis makes the smallest glance in Rashid's direction before looking back at me. Something's gone on. It may comfort you to know that your mind has proven highly difficult to tap into. I stare at him, my mouth hanging open. Huh? Louis gives a tight smile and links his fingers together on one knee. I will admit that I have tried to take a peek, not for any untoward purpose, just to ascertain my own safety here in my home, and yet I couldn't grasp a single coherent thought. Wow, I say. I don't mean that as an insult, I assure you. Oh, hearts, thanks. Consider yourself lucky to be immune to this sort of intrusion. He curls in his lips, though, and squints in recollection. But what is the name of that song? Hello, and thanks for the hearts that happened. What song? The one playing over and over in your head, the booming noise over everything else, the wall of static making it impossible for anyone to get through. That song. He's speaking, of course, of Belgian techno anthem, Pump Up the Jam. Louis claps his hands together and points at me. Yes, that's the one. Didn't realise you were a fan. I had already been alive for over 100 years when that song came out, he says, his voice slipping back into the creamy Alfredo sauce of remembrance. So much can happen in that time. Right, I say, and take my notebook back out. It sounds like this is going to be a doozy. But then we both hear a familiar, grumpy old man voice calling from the hallway. What did I miss? Fuck, is Philomena here? I told you I'm not going to interview you without her present. And yet you didn't rule out the reverse, Louis calls back. Daniel Malloy enters, grey hair mess, and he's pressing his thumb down on a band-aid in the crook of his elbow. Nice to see you, Philomena. Let me grab my laptop. As he hurries out the other way before we can reply, Louis gives me a look. And so it begins. Right, well, that was chapter 2 of Cunk on Fangs, which is the Philomena Cunk interview with the vampire story. I'll probably return and read a bit more at some point. Oh, I've got people here. Hello, thanks. Right, well, I'm off now. Bye.